Everyone expected a warm, thoughtful, carefully curated conversation. What they got instead was a slow-burning clash between two women known for their composure, one of them losing hers.
Everyone accepted a warm, thoughtful, carefully curated conversation. What they got instead was an apathetic, burning clash amid two women accepted for their composure. One of them accident hairs faster than anyone imagined. Central a quiet today appearance podcast studio beneath bendable lighting and spotless decor. Article was about to snap. And by the time the final catechism landed, Meghan Markle would be on her feet. Savannah Guthrie would be abashed, and the aggregation would be arctic in disbelief. No audience, no applause, just microphones and an aristocratic atmosphere rising like a storm. The flat was small, warm, about deceptively peaceful. Between two white boulet chairs stood a simple board table with neatly placed notes, 2 glasses of water, and the large argent podcast microphones that framed the absolute scene. Bendable shelves behind them captivated plants, aloof-tone vases, and altogether recumbent books. Everything about the set-aside calm professionalism. Savannah Guthrie exhaled agilely as Meghan Markle took her seat. Meghan looked sharp, deliberate. Her aspect was straight, chin hardly lifted, eyes already guarded. The restriction wasn't arresting yet, but Savannah had interviewed enough world abstracts to admit the early signs. Meghan was actuality to ascendancy the conversation, not to allotment one. Savannah smiled warmly. Meghan, welcome. I'm really animated you agreed to sit bottomward with me today. Meghan offered a small, polite smile, one that didn't absolutely ability her eyes. Well, Savannah, I chose this platform because I affected it would be a space that respects my voice. Savannah's smile faltered bisected a millimeter. Of course, she said calmly. My ambition is always admiring conversation. Great, Meghan replied, bridge her legs and smoothing her dress. Aloof authoritative sure we're on the aforementioned page. Savannah let the comment slide. She had accepted some edge, but not this soon. She turned slightly adjoined the MIC, her accent gentle and inviting. So, Savannah began. You've announced generally about rebuilding your activity in America. How has this new chapter shaped you? Meghan leaned back, eyes absorption thoughtfully. It's shaped me by absolution me, she answered. America is a abode area I don't acquire to be bargained to addition else's caricature. Savannah nodded. And yet, she said carefully, many bodies feel they've gotten to apperceive you through your interviews, your decure, alike your podcast. Would you say the accessible truly understands you? Meghan's beam was short and hardly dismissive. People understand whatever the media spoon feeds them, she replied. Which is why I'm accurate about area I speak. Obviously, there was a side awkward pause. Savannah chose her abutting question with precision. You mentioned before that abrogation the UK gave you freedom, but some critics say you and Harry still talk absolutely a bit about the monarchy. How do you acknowledge to that? Meghan's eyebrows lifted, her accent sharpening. Savannah, do you absolutely apprehend me to feel guilty for cogent my own story? Isn't that what platforms like castigation advance on? Stories. Savannah inhaled quietly. I'm not suggesting guilt, she clarified gently. Aloof exploring how your past still influences your present. Well, Meghan said with a bound smile. Maybe people should anguish beneath about my past and added about the actuality that I've built something elusive above a title. Savannah captivated her posture, still calm, still gracious, but the temperature in the allowance had acutely risen a few degrees. She absentively to access from another angle. Let's allocution about your family now. Your children. How are they doing? Meghan hesitated aloof for a moment as if chief whether she was irritated or insulted. They are children. She answered eventually. They are accomplishing what children do. And clashing the apple one left behind. I don't array them for cameras, so I'd apprehend the questions to also respect that. Savannah blinked, surprised. I meant it in a balmy way, she said softly. Bodies are naturally curious. Curiosity can be invasive, Meghan cut in. Abnormally aback, it comes from bodies who acquire never lived under the affectionate of analysis I have. Savannah shifted in her chair, but her voice stayed gentle. Understood. But you have spoken about motherhood before. even in your podcast. Because I chose to. Meghan airtight lightly. That doesn't give anybody a broad permission to poke into my children's lives. Addition pause. Another temperature shift. Savannah made a attenuate Duke action to join her notes. All right, she murmured. Let's pivot. But Meghan was already aptitude forward, eyes sharp, articulation cool. Acceptable idea. For the aboriginal time aback the interview began. Savannah acquainted the unmistakable warning every division announcer knows. This chat was branched somewhere dangerous, and not slowly. Savannah Guthrie took a sip of water, slow, controlled, to displace the accent of the conversation. The flat remained quiet except for the aside hum of the cameras. Meghan, meanwhile, had confused in her seat, her aspect straighter, her expression abbreviating as admitting she were preparing to spar, not speak. Meghan, Savannah resumed gently. In past interviews, you've announced about the challenges of transitioning from royal life to clandestine life. Looking back, what was the hardest part? Meghan exhaled sharply through her adenoids as admitting the question itself were redundant. Savannah, I anticipate the hardest allotment was realizing how acutely people misunderstand everything. You know, everyone thinks they're advantaged to judge what they've never experienced. Savannah nodded sympathetically. Of course, I can brainstorm the pressure must acquire being immense. But can you? Meghan countered, angry her head. Can you absolutely brainstorm it? Because unless you've had tabloids clue your every move or anatomize your every sentence, you can't possibly understand. Savannah stayed composed. You're right. I haven't lived through that. But the ambition actuality is to acquire your angle from you. Meghan gave a attenuate smile. A fresh-eyed hope the questions wouldn't be so predictable. It was subtle, but unmistakably condescending. Savannah swallowed the beam of irritation rising at the edges of her professionalism. She reminded herself. Breathe. Redirect. Keep calm. All right, Savannah said softly. Let's take a altered direction. She glanced at her notes. Meghan watched her carefully. You've announced a lot about empowerment, abnormally for adolescent women. What does that attending like for you now in this new appearance of your life? Meghan crossed her legs again, assed her ponytail with one hand. It looks like not acknowledgement myself endlessly, she replied. It looks like allotment projects that boost people, not institutions. Are you apropos to the aristocratic ancestors as an institution? Meghan aloft a brow. Isn't that what it is? Savannah tried again. Do you feel that admitting the difficulties, annihilation absolute, came from your time in the monarchy? Meghan's lips tightened. Well, she said slowly, I acquire abstruse resilience. And I learned that sometimes adventuresomeness is simply walking abroad from toxicity, alike when the apple expects you to smile through it. Savannah nodded thoughtfully. You've mentioned toxicity before. Do you beggarly the media, the institution, or your claimed relationships oral it? Meghan's eyes flickered, a adumbration of annoyance seeping through. Savannah, you see this is what I mean. Body's AP. I'm not allurement for names. I'm allurement for your reflections. And I'm giving them, Meghan said, her tone chilly. Aloof not in the way you want. Another answerable blackout abounding the room. Savannah approved again. Allotment a topic she hoped would abate the atmosphere. Let's allocution about your assignment with Harry, she said. Your projects together, the causes you support. Meghan interrupted with a blow that belted on theatrical. Savannah, aggregate I do doesn't have to be angry to Harry. I'm able of existing independently. Savannah blinked. I didn't beggarly to imply otherwise. Yet you did. Meghan shot back. It's consistently Harry this, Harry that. As admitting I'm aloof and accessory, Savannah regrouped quickly. Okay, she said gently. Then let me rephrase. What is your claimed eyes effective forward? That seemed to bolt Meghan off guard, but not in an affable way. My vision, Meghan repeated. My eyes is to create, to build, to advance after actuality asks to absolve it. Frankly, I'm annoyed of explaining my actual actuality to people. I acquire, Savannah replied softly. But allotment of a conversation, especially one meant to highlight your accomplishments, is giving people insight into your journey. Meghan's voice turned a conditioned abundant to frost the microphones. Insight doesn't mean interrogation. Savannah inhaled, steadying herself. It's not meant to feel like that, but it does. Meghan pressed, aptitude forward. You may not realize it, but your tone, your questions advance judgment. Savannah's eyebrows aerial slightly, an aperture in her contrarily calm facade. I'm sorry you feel that way. That was never my intention. Well, Meghan said sharply, intentions don't abolish the impact. The tension in the flat thickened. Even the plants seemed to become beneath the rising affecting temperature. Savannah made one aftermost attack to affluence the mood. Let's about face to article meaningful, she said, banishment to affable smile. You've aggressive abounding bodies about the world. About you anticipate about your legacy. My legacy, Meghan cut in, scoffing lightly. Savannah, I'm not some antique on display. I'm a person, a woman with goals, dreams, plans, and I shouldn't have to avert them at every turn. Savannah opened her aperture to respond, but Meghan wasn't finished. And honestly, Meghan added, her eyes narrowing, achievement this account won't be addition attack to aberration my words. I agreed to be actuality because I thought you'd be different. The association hung heavily amid them, accusatory, sharp. Savannah, admitting shaken, maintained her composure. Weigh actuality to acquire an honest conversation, she said quietly. Nothing more. Meghan sat back, accoutrements folding. Good, she said. Let's achievement it stays that way. But inside, Savannah knew things were a lone activity to get harder from here. The air in the baby podcast flat felt noticeably added now. Alike the quiet hum of the blast seemed louder, amplifying the restriction aerial between the two women. Savannah adapted her microphone slightly, an attenuator resting to the aggregation that she was still in control, even if the account itself was hanging by a thread. Meghan beyond one leg over the other, her aspect still impeccable, her announcement to absolute alloy of polite irritation and aseptic superiority. She wasn't adopting her voice. She didn't need to. The accurateness in her responses cut abundantly on their own. Savannah decided to try a softer access point. I'd like to allocution about motherhood, she began. You've been actual careful of your children's privacy, and abounding people admire that. How do you antithesis giving them a accustomed adolescence with the public's absorption in your life? Meghan let out an animation that articulate like an almost laugh. Well, Savannah, it's not exactly complicated, she said. I protect them. Period. That's what acceptable mothers do. Savannah nodded gently. Of course. And do you anytime feel pressure? Pressure? Meghan interrupted. From whom? The media? The public? Trust me. I abstruse a long time ago not to affliction what strangers expect of me or my children. Savannah leaned advanced slightly, befitting her tone level. I alone ask because many parents in the accessible eye attack with that balance. Maybe they do, Meghan said coolly. But I handle myself differently. It wasn't what she said, Savannah realized. It was how she said it. Every sentence seemed like a buried jab. Every answer a Buttles marker. Savannah tried another approach. Let's allocution about your projects, the altruistic assignment you've done recently. You've announced about advocating for brainy bloom awareness and women's empowerment. What motivates you in those areas? Meghan gave a small, dismissive shrug. Motivation isn't the issue. I do these things because they matter. Because I acquire access and I choose to use it positively. I know that's adamantine for some bodies to accept. Savannah blinked. Why do you think that's adamantine for bodies to accept? Oh, I don't know, Meghan said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Maybe because society is still afflictive with a woman who knows her worth. Savannah sat still. I anticipate abounding bodies celebrate strong women, she replied gently. I know I do. Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly, evaluating her like addition analytical a diamond for flaws. Well, she said, I guess that depends on what someone defines as strong. Savannah abandoned the provocation and apprenticed on. You've mentioned before that dispatch abroad from royal duties was the healthiest choice for your family. Looking back now, do you feel you begin peace? Meghan hesitated. Not because she didn't know the answer, Savannah suspected, but because she didn't like the question. Peace is complicated, Meghan finally said. But I'm absolutely bigger off than I was trapped in that system. Savannah nodded. Aback, you say system. Do you mean the absolution itself or the pressures around it? Meghan's aperture curled. Savannah, it's all the same. The monarchy, the press, the expectations. It's all one machine, and I'm done feeding it. The allowance algaed again. Savannah acquainted her jaw bind for the first time. She still kept her tone even. Some ability altercate that by writing books, accomplishing interviews, producing documentaries, you're still allotment of that conversation. Meghan's eyes flashed aloof for a second. I allotment my truth, she said sharply. That's not agriculture the machine. That's reclaiming my voice. Surely you, as a journalist, can acknowledge that. Savannah took a biting breath. I do understand the amount of speaking your truth, she said. But I additionally think conversation agency actuality accessible alike to hard questions. Meghan let out an annoyed sigh. Savannah, you're not allurement hard questions. You're repeating narratives that should acquire died years ago. That hit harder than Savannah expected. She tried not to appearance it. Okay, Savannah said calmly. A fresh let's pivot. Abounding of your critics. Oh, of advance we're talking about critics now, Meghan muttered beneath her breath. Aloof loud enough for the microphone to catch. Savannah paused. Meghan, I'm simply exploring both sides. And that's the problem. Meghan snapped. You anticipate every opinion deserves space. Some don't. Some are aloof, hateful. And frankly, I'm tired of assuming otherwise. Savannah's brows bargain aloof slightly, able in her able neutrality. I understand that criticism can be painful. No, Meghan cut in sharply. You don't understand. You've never lived through what I continued thin. All right, she said quietly. Then advise me understand. That's what conversations like this are for. Meghan leaned forward, her articulation air-conditioned and sharp. Conversations like this are usually for entertainment, for bodies to blow and prod and twist. But you apperceive what? I'm not actuality to be dissected anymore. Savannah acquainted the shift. This wasn't irritation now. This was hostility. She clutched her easily agilely together, grounding herself before continuing. I'm not actuality to anatomize you, Meghan, she said. I'm actuality to acquire an accessible dialogue. Meghan aged her arch skeptically. Are you? Because so far it feels like I'm defending myself adjoining the aforementioned tired assumptions. Savannah inhaled deeply. Well, afresh let me ask you something more personal, she said gently. What do you appetite bodies to acquire about you that they don't? Meghan's response was instant, clipped, about I see. That I don't owe anyone understanding. Savannah froze. That wasn't aloof defensive. That was a bank slamming shut. And the temperature in the allowance alone another degree. Meghan kept going. Honestly, Savannah, these questions feel beneath me. I anticipation this would be a different kind of interview, not addition attempt to box me into addition else's narrative. Savannah's accord slipped for the first time. Meghan, I'm aloof accomplishing my job. Afresh maybe your job needs rethinking. The shock was immediate. Not loud, not dramatic, but articulate abundant to cut apple pie through the studio's silence. Savannah's eyes flickered. Hurt, disbelief, abstemiousness afore she lowered her gaze, regrouping. Meghan didn't flinch. She artlessly bankrupt her hands, waiting for the abutting catechism as though she were the one interviewing Savannah. And in that moment, Savannah realized something. This wasn't a striction anymore. This was a collision. Savannah Guthrie had been in journalism continued abundant to censor back an account was beyond saving. She had interviewed world leaders during crisis, survivors of unimaginable tragedies, and celebrities in their best brittle moments. But nothing annihilation acquainted absolutely like navigating Meghan Markle's simmering hostility in this baby answer quiet podcast room. The atmosphere was brittle now, like bottle beneath an aerial crack. Meghan sat altogether assertive in her chair, back straight, dress smooth, not a strand a bit out of place. Yet everything about her broadcast tension. A queen after a crown, adventuresome anyone to challenge her. Savannah straightened slightly, accomplishments herself again. Meghan, she began, her accent affable yet steady. I appetite to blanket this up by talking about the future. What do you see advanced for yourself? For your family? Meghan exhaled sharply, rolling her eyes. Not dramatically, but abundant that the cameras bent it. Honestly, she said, the approaching is whatever I create. I'm not actuality to accord the apple a alley map of my plans. Bodies will see what I choose for them to see, not more. Savannah nodded, unfazed on the outside. All right, but do you achievement for reconnect Ion with your ancestors someday? With the royal? Oh, for heaven's sake, Meghan snapped, acid her off. Are we back to that again? Savannah blinked. I only meant no, Meghan said firmly. You meant to annoyance this chat into the same annoyed area every interviewer falls into. Ancestors drama, aristocratic gossip, conflict. I accepted added from you, Savannah. The words hit harder than any shout anytime could. Savannah's face didn't change for a moment. Afresh, her eyebrows lifted aloof slightly. Hurt, replaced by an A-conditioned understanding. I'm not aggravating to drag anything, Savannah said. I'm doing what journalists do. Explore the full picture. You've announced publicly about these issues abounding times. Meghan gave a cold, humorless laugh. Yes, well, maybe I'm done acknowledgement myself, especially to bodies who pretend to be objective, but are absolutely aloof fishing. Savannah inhaled through her nose. Her patience was at its end. All right, she said softly, her articulation firmer now. Let me ask one aftermost question. Meghan crossed her arms, announcement stiff. Make it an acceptable one. Savannah swallowed, afresh leaned forward, professional, calm, but no longer willing to be stepped on. You've spoken a lot about accomplishment, your voice, she said. But you've additionally accused almost every academy you've been allotment of, Hollywood, the aristocratic family, the media, of mistreating you. Do you anytime stop and ask yourself whether allotment of the conflict ability appear from the way you respond to people? The blackout was instant. Meghan's eyes widened, not with surprise, but with offense. Wow, she said, her articulation low and dangerous. So that's area we are. Savannah captivated her gaze. It's an honest question. No, Meghan said, sitting forward, articulation sharp like attenuate eyes cracking. It's a manipulative question, a passive-aggressive attack to acrylic me as the problem. And it's absolutely why people like me charge to assure ourselves. Savannah acquainted the califaction acceleration in her chest, but captivated steady. Meghan, no one is painting you. Yes, you are. Meghan hissed. You all do. You pretend to be friendly and supportive, but aback it comes bottom-ward to it. You're aloof like every other anchorman who wants a headline. Savannah bound her easily together. Meghan, I'm not your enemy. I'm asking for clarity. And I'm done giving it. Meghan snapped, continuing so abruptly that her microphone bond tugged with her. The crew flinched. The allowance froze. Savannah straightened in her chair, watching calmly. Sadly, Meghan's articulation grew sharper, but still not loud. Not yelling, aloof abounding of icy fury. You know what, Savannah? I anticipation this appearance was different. I anticipation you were different. But clearly, it's a aloof addition trap. Another adventitious for bodies to aberration my words. Savannah's accent softened, but her strength showed through. This isn't a trap. It's a conversation. You're choosing to see it as article else. Oh, please. Meghan scoffed. Spare me the sincerity. I've dealt with abundant fake concern in my life. Savannah bankrupt her eyes for a moment. Perhaps to gather herself. Perhaps to authority aback something sharper. Aback she reopened them. The warmth was gone. What remained was professionalism belted with steel. All right, Meghan, she said quietly. If you feel this account isn't confined you, you're chargeless to leave. It was the first time Savannah had articulate done. Meghan froze, abashed that Savannah hadn't begged her to stay. Her button lifted. Fine, Meghan said. I don't charge this. I don't charge you. And frankly, this is beneath me. She pulled off a microphone almost and placed it on the table with a bendable but unmistakably contemptuous tap. Savannah didn't move, didn't respond, didn't plead. She simply said, "Thank you for your time." Meghan gave an algid laugh, angry on her heel, and absolved out. Heels beat sharply on the flat floor. The aperture closed behind her with an aerial bang that felt louder than any slam. For a continued moment, Savannah aloof sat there, composed, shoulders squared, breath steady. Then she angry to the camera, calm, dignified, unwavering. "Well," she said softly, "sometimes conversations don't go the way you hope. But allotment of journalism is a human.